welcome back to a brand new video. I hope you're all having fantastic days. I hope you're having the most fantastic days. I hope you know what? In fact, I hope your days are having fantastic yous. This week, I was supposed to release the first episode of The Evil Walking Dead on crack. Of course, I'm about as good with timetables as Twitch is at keeping kids safe online, but I decided this week I'll just release a tier list for every episode of The Walking Dead. If you suffer from some sort of brain injury, then yes, that means there are spoilers. Shocking, I know. And as we all know, this is going to be my opinion. And of course, my opinion has the backing of the crack behind it, so it's always going to be right. Whatever you say, no matter how valid you may think it is, it's going to be wrong. You're an asshole. Shut the fuck up and die in the most horrific way possible. Starting off with Season 1, Episode 1. We all know Season 1's not going to go below an A. This might be the only controversial ranking. A New Day is going to be A tier. It really did well with setting up the characters, setting up their flaws, setting up exactly their character arcs, if you will. Clementine-Lee dynamic was probably the most important. If they got that wrong, then it doesn't matter if the other characters are just clones of Zuko from The Last Airbender, the TV show. I should probably say animation show, just in case it doesn't go too well next year. But the main character dynamic really nailed it. The only thing keeping it from S tier is a few reasons. Number one, no matter what you choose to do, no matter who you choose to side with, you could get down on your knees and start blowing Larry while fingering his prostate. He's still gonna punch you in the mouth at the end. And you could go to Kenny, you could not save his son, you could kill his son, you could fuck his wife, you could take his wife to Auschwitz, fuck her with the gas mask on, return, show him video of you fucking his wife with the gas mask on, and he'll still save you at the end of episode 1. It just doesn't make any sense. You could throw his child out even and he'd still love you. I understand that maybe the game didn't have the highest budget where they couldn't have had, maybe... even that doesn't make sense. Because, you could have just had Kenny punch you in the mouth and then Larry save you. Because after getting punched in the mouth, it kind of ruins the whole Larry thing. You're not exactly going to be like, oh, sorry, massa. Let me clean your shoes, massa. You need some cotton picked, massa? Let me go pick that cotton. With Larry in episode 2, you're just going to hate him. I'm certain that episode 2, everybody killed Larry. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm 99% certain. We all had the biggest smile on our face, just replayed the Grinch animated movie, threw that cinder block on his head, and started twerking in front of the screen to get some pleasure. So that's probably the biggest problem I have with that. The other problem I have is obviously Sean. You could save Sean, Duck lives, Sean dies. You could save Duck, Sean dies, Duck lives. You could do the Orange Justice while trying to scare away the walkers with, photos of Amy Schumer, and they still kill Sean and Duck lives. So it really doesn't matter what you do, and there really is no point in saving Sean, because you're just going to get kicked out anyway. I would have loved if he allowed you to stay an extra night. Or maybe you get some sort of bunny. It really just doesn't make sense, man. I'm going to be completely honest with you here. There's no reason not to save Duck unless you're doing an evil playthrough. Or an opposite playthrough, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But those are my only two problems with A New Day. Overall, still a near flawless masterpiece. Speaking of flawless masterpiece, let's get started with episode 2, Starved for Help. I apologize. I ate this episode up and left nothing for everybody else, which is what led exactly to the problems they have where they were starving. You get a new person, Mark, who came from a military base with a shit ton of food. You have to manage the dynamic, who gets to eat today, who doesn't get to eat today with Larry. It really kind of makes you sort of think, who do I want as a friend later on? And of course, most people are probably going to feed the same people for the most part. Maybe not Doug if you saved him instead of Carly for whatever reason. I don't know, but at the end of the day, the episode really takes off when you go to the farm. You see all the food they have, you see all the corn stalks, and think to yourself, look at all this food, man. There's no way they'd be eating fucking humans of all people. And then you get the bandits attacking, which is kind of the thing I really don't like. I understand, it sort of helps in the way where you search the bandit camp and slowly realize, holy shit, despite all the corn, these guys are fucking cannibals. But the fact is that when Mark gets shot with the arrow by these unforeseen bandits, he gets taken in the back. And, for some reason, they just decide to kill him right afterwards. Probably not the best way to endear. If you're trying to become a child predator, you don't immediately go to the 5-year-old and say, come into my van. You give them candy, and then tell them to come into your van. But these guys immediately just, no, we're going to kill, and we're going to make you eat your friend. And I'll get you on our side. Thing is, they don't even kill fucking Mark either. They just leave him with his legs off. You know, it's like when somebody borrows a fry. Is that what you're gonna fucking give back? Yeah, sorry, wait, your friend's legs. You can have the rest of them. I just don't understand why they wouldn't kill him. Would have made things, I guess, a lot easier to manage, I suppose. But again, overall, those are just small nitpicks. I like the fact that you can kill Larry. Like, Larry was dead either way. He went through cardiac arrest. The odds of survival are so low. They wouldn't be worth letting a 6'6" fucking basketball prodigy behemoth who could go one-on-one with Wembenyama come up and just beat all four of you. He could probably take all four of them if we're being honest. So I understand why they killed him. Really nothing else. You get to beat the fuck out of those guys at the end of the game, which is always nice. You could also choose to sort of spare them and let the walkers take them, set up a good example for Clementine, and then of course Carly comes and saves the day, and you also have that car that's going to be more than important at the end of the game. You could take the supplies from it, or you could say no, and the group still takes supplies from it. It really not the best dynamic, but yeah, overall, Starved for Help, an absolute masterpiece. Episode 3, we're up against another absolute masterpiece. The only problem I have with the bandits is it's just like no-face bandit type group. It's like Team Rocket if Jesse and James weren't a thing and they just had Meowth face masks instead of the actual Pokemon. That's probably the only thing I don't like. There's no, like, evil being or whatever. And you go to the drugstore. The drugstore has been just ejaculated into by the airplane, the helicopters, the lone surviving sperm. And then you sort of have to have a timer, and you try to get as many supplies as possible. Then you're eventually driven off. Kenny loses his kids. Lily loses her fucking mind and shoots Carly for some reason. Like, the Doug thing makes sense, because I think Lily shoots you, and then Doug jumps in to come and save you, like the people protecting Pokemon from Pal World or something. And then if you have Carly, she just shoots Carly. You know, when Ben steals the supplies, so you get mad at Lee and shoot Carly type of thing. Really doesn't make too much sense. But overall, episode 3, you meet Chuck, you meet Omid and Krista. I think they were a little rushed in. I would have liked them to be in at the beginning of the episode just because of the fact you'd get more time to develop their characters. Their characters really are probably the worst character developments in this game. Like, Chuck got a good bit of character development for the most part. Omid and Krista, not so much until episode 4 and 5, and by then the plot's really kicking up, and there really is no time to sit back and talk about what they did before the war. But overall, long road ahead, an absolute masterpiece. The fact that you have to escape from the zombies, massive hordes of zombies, the relationship dynamic between Lee and Clementine really continues for the most part. It's damn near perfect, S tier no doubt. Around every corner is, again, same thing with the New Day. It's almost perfect. A lot of the things that don't make sense is the fact that, you know, Clementine decides to not only leave, but somehow survive leaving. I'm going to assume the pedophile just came and escorted her to the Marsh House or whatever. Lee ends up getting bitten by the zombie. That part kind of makes sense. I mean, he was looking for Clementine. He saw her hat on the ground. He gets bit by the zombie afterwards. I'm not really too mad about that. And then you have I think, yes, around every corner is when you go to the city. I think it's Crawford is what it's called, with Molly Percocet. And then in that, I would have loved it if there were, like, maybe a group of survivors that you had to, like, sort of fight with. Maybe it would have made sense, maybe not. I just didn't like the fact that it was, again, another zombie-invested town. I mean, I know it's The Walking Dead, but I would have liked there to be, like, a surviving group in there. You gotta sneak in, and maybe you cause the downfall of Crawford. Would have made sense, like, oh, damn, well, we got the boat, but, you know, well, we kind of doomed an entire town to slavery, or zombery, whatever the fuck it's called. Again, it's almost perfect, still great, some little problems like a New Day, but almost a masterpiece. No Time Left is perfect. It was a great ending. If they ended the series on that, the series would be a lot better looked on in the past. This is probably the one thing I don't want to spoil, simply because it's absolutely chef's kiss beautiful. I finger myself every time I think about No Time Left. If somebody asks me what time is it, and I say it's 5:30, and they say, shit, there's no time left, we got it wrong, I immediately just writhe on the ground in pleasure as I shit myself in pure joy. Overall, Season 1 was definitely by far the best story. It's the only season also which got, I guess, overall acclaim in the gaming world. Like, everyone was playing it, and for good reason. The story was great. There wasn't any, I guess, choice. Like, a lot of the choices you make don't really matter at the end, no matter what you do. I would have liked if, for example, if you save Carly, she lasts till episode 4, maybe even survives. If you, I guess, shoot Katja, or, I'm confused, actually. No, like, I would have liked the fact if you killed Lily. We'll get to Season 4 in a little bit, but overall, Season 1 was a grand masterpiece. 400 days, I think it's just going to go in D tier. 400 days, it was a good, I guess, in-between point. It was just not good, man. Let's be honest here. In 400 days, it really depended on what they would do in Season 2, because they said they were going to do good things with Season 2, and then they all just became a part of, whatever the fuck, Carter's gang, and you see them in, like, 2 different scenes, and you think to yourself, like, wait a minute, I played this game for, like, 2 fucking hours just to get 2 scenes in Season 2. Vince's story is a decent one. It probably isn't the best. You have to pick which inmate to save, which is pretty cool. It's about a mid-story. Wyatt, whatever the fuck his name is, story, the, I guess, German who came to America, follows an escape with his companion away from the aggressor into a dense, foggy forest. Again, that was kind of a boring story. You're just running away in a car, and then I guess some spooky things at the end. It's probably the worst of the stories. Russell's is pretty good because you have to like help that evil guy sneak into a or a gas station and then kill the old couple or just leave him, which is pretty nice. And then you have Bonnie's story. I fucking hate Bonnie. We're not going to talk about her. Shell's story was probably my favorite simply because of the fact I got to fuck Herschel's gang right up the ass. You absolutely love to see it. That's literally it. Like, that's genuinely the only reason I love that story. But when it comes to Season 2, let's start with All That Remains. All That Remains is getting a B tier. Yeah, it was a decent start, but for most of the episode, you were by yourself with Clementine, and they really didn't nail that sort of loner by myself vibe. There was no dialogue, which is where The Walking Dead really shines, not just the game, but also the TV show. For the most part, you're just walking around with a 7-year-old or 11-year-old girl, and there really isn't much dialogue she can do. Really not many actions she can do. You also lose Omid and Krista in the first 20 minutes, so that's fun. And you still don't know where Krista is, but we'll get into Season 4 in a little while. Overall, All That Remains, you meet the new cabin crew. The problem, I think, is they didn't give enough time to develop the cabin crew. Because, like, A House Divided starts and you're immediately on the run from Carver or Carter, whatever the fuck his name is. He's a southern old white guy is all you have to know about him. So I guess, overall, it is getting a B tier. It was a good enough starting point. If it was a better season overall, it definitely would have done a little better. But the only really, I guess, A-tier episode here is A House Divided. We'll get into that in a little bit. House Divided's really good. You're on the run from Carver. You re-meet Kenny. You have some fun in the ski lodge. You know, yeah, you just don't hang up the Christmas ornaments. Make sure to not throw up the angel because fuck Sarah. For some reason, Rebecca might have gotten pregnant from Carver. I don't know how the fuck that happened. But, yeah, overall, the characters were nice. I also like the fact that you can kill Nick. Except, again, this is where the ugly face is shown for The Walking Dead. If you kill Nick, he literally does nothing in the next 2 episodes. He has, like, 1 line. He isn't even part of the group meetup in episode 3. He's just sleeping on the cut. So, again, overall, House Divided, it does have some problems like episode 1 and episode 4. But overall, it's still a really good episode. And then you finally get caught by Carver. Bonnie ends up betraying you and expects to be friends afterwards, giving you a coat as if you'll be like, oh, yes, this rainbow coat will definitely make up for all the friends lost. Thank you, you fucking... Not gonna get canceled. Episode 3, In Harm's Way, I think is another A tier probably. Yes, I'll give it an A tier. I like the fact that you're sort of trying to escape the prison. Kenny's the only one who wants to fight, and you sort of have to galvanize the troops a little bit. You also meet Mike or Mark or whatever. Mike is his name, who's just Budget Lee. And even Budget Lee is better than non-Budget Lee, so that definitely gives some points in the show's favor. You also meet with Carter and learn his philosophy, and you start nodding your head like, oh, you know, he might be having a point, honestly. He's a pretty decent villain, a bit above average. Like, I would say he's a little bit of an above-average villain. I liked Carver overall. The only problem I have is that you don't have the 400 Days DLC really interact too much with Episode 3. Aside from that, I do like the fact that if you want to, you could, I guess, be friends with Bonnie. You meet Jane. Jane's pretty cool. Kenny gets his eye fucked and still stands up like the soldier he is. And at the end, you can actually watch Carver get his face beat in, and then you escape in the zombies, a callback to Episode 5 of Season 1. It's just great. And back to Season 1, Episode 5. I didn't even fucking talk. I didn't talk about anything. I completely forgot I omitted that season just because of its masterpiece. Go play it if you haven't. But Season 2, Episode 3, really good overall. It does have some problems, some of the writing things sort of expose themselves, as we'll see in Amid the Ruins, but overall it's still a damn near flawless episode, in my opinion. Episode 4, Amid the Ruins, is getting... I'll give it C. Amid the ruins, this is where the writing really unravels, but not to the biggest extent. I guess that's really episode 5. Amid the ruins, you escape. The whole Sarah thing, it makes sense, but it was just so fucking annoying. Like, Sarah just runs away screaming. The zombies somehow don't get her. How? I couldn't fucking tell you, man. Nobody can, not even the writers. And then you have to escape with Rebecca, who can't do shit, which kind of makes sense overall, right? Alvin died, and if you save Alvin or Alfred or whatever the fuck his name, Elvis Presley we'll call him, if you save Elvis in episode 2, he immediately gets erased in episode 3. Actually, that's true. I completely forgot about that. That's getting a B tier just for that. What's the point of giving choice if he's just gonna die anyways? But again, episode 4, you have to save Rebecca. Jane tells her to abort the fetus. That's probably not the best way to endear yourself to a single mother. Overall, the entire episode is just set up with the fact that Rebecca's having the baby, and you guys have to somehow help her have the baby. And then Arvo's gang shows up, and whether you help him or whether you hurt him, he shows up with his hooligans, the Russian mafia in the next episode, complete with that fucking, the machine or whatever the fuck his name is, the unfunny comedian. They just get into a shootout at the end while Rebecca just turns in the middle of the snowfall. It was decent overall. There was a lot of Jane in this episode, and I really don't like Jane, which we'll get to why in episode 5. But in episode 4, she was a really good character, so a C tier just because the plot just went all over the place. You spent half the time finding Sarah, the other half trying to get the baby, and at the end of the day, it just didn't have the same writing that the first season and really the rest of the second season had. Now we're going to No Going Back. No Going Back, I'll give it a B tier just because it was a really good ending where your choices actually mattered, so it's always props for that. The only thing I don't like about it is probably the fact that they literally just throw Luke out. He doesn't even die to walkers, doesn't die in like a heroic last stand or anything. He just dies in the fucking ice. The one good character from season 2 is just gone just like that. And most of the time you are just walking through the snow, and then you somehow kill Arvo's gang without losing a single member of your own. How does that work? I couldn't fucking tell you. You definitely had the U.S. Army bankrolling this episode, no doubt. It would have been better if, for example, maybe Luke dies here in the shootout. That would have made a lot of sense. Maybe you also lost somebody else. Maybe you had to pick between choosing either Luke or Jane to save, and that person ends up being the main antagonist for the end against Kenny, which I guess, the ending still would be bad, but at least you'd have an excuse for it to be. Well, the ending isn't bad. Let me explain why. There's no reason not to choose Kenny. He ends up losing his mind because he loses his second girlfriend or whatever. He loses the second family his second job could support. So he does go a little crazy, but it's not like super duper off the rails. Like, the worst thing he does is abuse the guy who literally just fucking shot you guys up, which, it's the end of the world. There's no need to adhere to the Geneva suggestions. It's understandable. Everything Kenny does for the most part is understandable. And then, the end of the episode, where they have to explain to you, try to convince you that Kenny is in the wrong, and that Kenny is an asshole and needs to be put down. What they do, unironically, is have Jane leave the baby Kenny pretty much adopts as his in a car in the snowstorm, like an actual blizzard, like you're in fucking Nunavut trying to hunt, seals with natives. They leave him in that blizzard, and then Jane says, I did this so I could show you how bad Kenny is. If I take somebody's fucking baby and throw him in a car in a blizzard, they're obviously going to try to fucking kill me. What are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. Are you on crack? Are you on fentanyl? Are you on some of that Mexican cartel shit? How much fentanyl was in your shit? She didn't just take heroin. She took the heroin with fentanyl and expected herself to make sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It's so fucking stupid. The Kenny ending is really good. The Kenny ending is definitely by far the best. That's literally the reason it isn't average or lackluster or even bad. Overall, he really has a nice ending to the character, and if they just ended it season 2, I think it would have made a lot more sense, simply because of the fact that Clem and AJ are safe at Wellington, Kenny's done his job, rides out into the sunset. Going back with Jane just for her to kill herself in the next season isn't really the best thing, though I guess Kenny also had an unceremonious send-off, so overall season 2 wasn't as good as season 1, not even close. It was maybe average, like a high B tier, whereas The Walking Dead season 1 was an average S tier, so it was a little drop in quality, but I think season 3 is really where the quality really begins to drop. Like, Ties That Bind was fine. It just wasn't very memorable overall. Like, I think I'm just going to give it an average of C tier. It was a decent start. I think it was a little slow. Like, they had to cut back to flashbacks so you could know about Javi's family and whatnot. And I think that kind of slowed shit down in the later episodes. First episode, I think, is fine. It's done well. And then you end up just getting that little girl shot at the end. It kind of seems like they just did that for shock factor. I mean, it is The Walking Dead, so there is that. But she did end up dying at the end of the first episode, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I guess it is. There's nothing I can really point out and say I didn't like. It just wasn't memorable. There was nothing great. There was nothing bad. So it just gets like the average, like probably high C tier, I guess. If we're ordering this by how good the episodes are, I still like Star for Help better than the 5th episode. A New Day's probably, I like A House Divided better than Around Every Corner. All That Remains. No Going Back's probably the best out of all these. Like, it was still a really good episode overall. But again, it was just average for the most part. There really isn't too much else to say. Ties That Bind episode 2, I think it's just stupid. The writing is just fucking... it was just fucking ass. Like, you're two new people, and the community decides not to throw you guys out for the band. Like, I don't understand what the fuck Trip was tripping. Like, Trip was definitely on that good shit. It was bad, and then you're on the road, and then I guess they blame you, which, fair. I mean, you sort of did get their whole town fucking shot up. And then at the end of the episode, you end up meeting Javier's brother, Kate's abusive husband from the previous life. And I'm thinking to myself, like, holy fucking shit, this episode 3 is going to be so fucking ass. But Ties That Bind was just... it was overall bad in comparison. Like, it might have been decent when you compare it to other games, maybe, but for a Walking Dead episode, it was just bad. A lot of the shit doesn't make sense. Why would they sacrifice their town to support, like, 4 different people? Then the whole Gabe and Clementine thing, I think, was fine overall. They really didn't put too much emphasis on it, so there really isn't too much to say about that. It didn't really feel rushed, but it didn't really go anywhere, so there's really nothing to say about that. I think one of the only things that was good about this episode is the fact that if you don't shoot Conrad, I think he lives to the end of the game, which kind of makes a lot of sense. Honestly, it's the first time Telltale's ever done that. We'll probably move it up to D tier just for that, ahead of 400 Days. But overall, a lot of this shit just really didn't make too much sense. And then there were a lot of bugs I encountered in this episode specifically. I had to restart the entire game after trying to get that thing out of the back of the car when there was a bridge underneath where the zombies were stopped. So overall, like, episode 1 was lackluster. Episode 2 was just sort of... a lot of shit just really didn't make sense. And then Clementine was part of the New Frontier. And then the middle of the episode stops because of a flashback, which I'd prefer they do it. Like, there's a flashback for Clementine, and then there's a flashback for Javier episode. It literally leaves no fucking time for you to actually play, like, the current now. You made Jesus, too, which I guess is pretty cool, but that's literally all I can say about this episode. Definitely the worst main series episode up to this point. I'm happy to say episode 3 was 1,000 times better than episode 2. It's going in the great category. I'm as shocked as you are, but I think the flashbacks were pretty cool where you see what happened with Clementine. But when it happened, like, right there, I fully expected them to just embrace Javi as part of the community. But then all of a sudden, you're just fucking kicked out. You have to go to, like, the safe house. David finds that there's corruption going on. And then you have the ending where Joan just takes over. So I think overall it was done really well. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. And then the guy, Badger, who shot, whatever the fuck that little girl's name in the first episode, you could literally crush his skull in. Javi played baseball, so there was absolutely nothing left of his face after he was done. Overall, I really liked that. I really did enjoy that. Definitely one of my favorite episodes, probably in The Walking Dead overall. I just think it was really well done. The fact that Richmond, it's a safe place, but it has some, I guess, corrupt undertones, and you end up losing in the end, which is always nice to see. Episode 4, Thicker Than Water after that. I really don't have too much to say about these episodes, except for the fact that you do end up killing Joan at the end of the episode, which is really good. The one thing I don't like is the fact that Kate tries to get you to abandon your brother. Like, he might have been abusive to you, but he didn't do shit to me. And this is actually like a settlement, that you could live in, which is really nice. Overall, I think episode 4 was probably... it was good overall. I'm gonna keep it... I'll keep it in the good tier. I think it was fine. It was definitely better than the first 2 episodes, in my opinion. Overall, the plan to stop Joan using the truck, it kind of backfired on them. Obviously, it did turn out that the Eleanor girl, she ended up betraying you, which again it was a little stupid overall because I don't know why. Well, actually, never mind. I take that back. She was a nurse and they really needed medical professionals, so I could understand like her being the one to betray them. She definitely gave them, I guess, she was somebody that they'd want to keep around is going to be what I'm going to say. And obviously, shooting Joan is 100% the best option. If you free David, he just shoots Clint, and that's literally it. Overall, it was a good episode. It wasn't better than episode 3, in my opinion, but it was still really good overall. Episode 5, From the Gallows, is just an average ending. Like, it really isn't anything too crazy for the most part. You either have Kate die, you either have Javi, you either have the brother die, you might even have Gabe die. It's pretty much you guys just escaping that city. And then Trip ends up falling off a helicopter, I think, which is just so fucking stupid. No, it was Ava. Oh no, you choose to save between Ava and Trip at the end of episode 4. And obviously it's a Telltale game, so they get like 2 lines of dialogue, and then they end up getting shot, or they end up dropping off a helicopter in the end of... Not end of a helicopter, it's a zombie just fucking throws them off the cliff at the end of episode 5. Again, these episodes weren't like the most memorable to me. I think a huge part of that was having a new main character, which... You know, I think Javi was a great protagonist in my opinion, but overall it just seemed that with that Clementine as the lead, the show really didn't know what it was doing. And then at the end, obviously, you have to choose between going back. Like, David's plan was so fucking stupid. We're going to go back home and start the family up again. What do you want? You're just going to ignore the zombie apocalypse outside? And then Kate goes to try and save Richmond. I don't think I saved Richmond because I really didn't like Kate at that point. Completely forget what she did. I just remember I didn't like her, so I just saved David and Gabe, and then I ended up killing Kate, but we did end up saving Richmond, which is pretty nice. And Clementine leaves with one of the worst haircuts of all time, an absolute war crime. Shooting Joan would have gotten you a lesser sentence at the Geneva Convention than what you did to her hair, but overall, episode 5 gets a C tier. It was average, wasn't the best, really wasn't the worst either. And then we get to Season 4. Season 4, I think, is a little better than Season 3. I still think Season 4, aside from Episode 4, it really wasn't anything too special. Episode 1, it's done running, and then you get to this survivor camp filled with kids who somehow survived longer than Lee and Kenny combined. So, I mean, the thing is, though, they didn't really have to deal with walkers. They're just by themselves for the most part. So that kind of made sense. And essentially, it was a lot better because of the fact that you were sort of the adult in the room. So it kind of made sense instead of Season 2 where you had the 11-year-old girl making all your decisions. Episode 1, where you end up actually teaching AJ how to survive and then meeting the characters. I think that's something Season 4 did really well. Instead of the first episode of Season 2 where half the time is spent running away, the most of Episode 1 is just you meeting and interacting with all the different characters and learning about them, which is really good for a character development standpoint. So overall, I am going to give it a B tier. I'm just not going to arrange this. It's somewhere in the B tier. It was good. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was near perfect. Obviously, all the first episodes are a cut below what the average is, so... Again, a lot of the time they are spent just really slow, just trying to meet and build up the characters. But this episode, it really works. It's not as good as A New Day, but I still think it's just a little bit worse, maybe, in setting up the characters. And then, again, I fucking said that already. Let's get to Episode 2. Episode 2, after AJ just blanks the guy right in the middle of the forehead, gives him a third eye, you're kicked out of the group for understandable reasons. AJ ends up thinking he's a monster for understandable reasons. Clementine says, "No, you're not a monster." And then I say in my head, or on camera, "Yes, you are a fucking monster. We're gonna get kicked out because of you." Overall, Episode 2, I think, is also... I think it's C2. I think it's the worst episode here. And then the other thing, Lily ends up being the final villain instead of somebody like Krista. Now, I think Lillian isn't the worst thing, but Clementine was looking for Krista for literally the entire of Season 2. The entire Season 2, she was looking for Krista. I really thought they were going to bring her back in the final season, but they picked Lily instead. Probably because she was going to be a villain, and you're thinking to yourself, like, oh, Krista's kind of cool. I might want to join her. Whereas if it's Lily, you're like, man, fuck Lily. I don't want Lily. I want to join the survivors. You end up hating her because of Season 1, of course. Krista would have been better, especially if you're thinking to yourself, like, God damn it, this used to be my friend, but we're on the opposite sides of the war. Like, writing-wise, it would have been a lot better. Again, those are just opinions. At the end, the battle was fine, except that guy who had the what the fuck's it called? The disease from The Last of Us growing on his forehead fucked up the entire plan and got his friend shot, so congratulations. Aside from that, I think it was decent overall. The last battle you have to pick between Violet and Lewis, again, it was fine. It was like picking Carly. It was like picking Carly or Doug. I honestly like Lewis 100 times more than Violet. But I'm getting kind of tired. This video I think is going on long enough. Let's get to episode 3 real quick. This is where it really gets good. Episode 3, you end up saving. You end up blanking Lily in the head. My God. Oh, AJ. AJ was he didn't just shoot once, not twice, not thrice. It depends how many, I don't even know. Oh, I think it was 7 times he shot her in the chest. Absolute masterpiece. It's going probably A tier. I'll give it A tier. I think the episode 3 was really good. You're invading, you're trying to save your friends. You find out Lewis's tongue is cut out or Violet is blinded. And then you also have a sort of philosophical debate with Lily. You escape, go upstairs, help with AJ. And the best part about this episode is the fact that I think his name was TJ, the guy with the Last of Us plague on his forehead. He had the gun aimed at Lily. Lily put her fucking forehead to the barrel. You won't do it, bitch. And then later, AJ gets the gun, puts it at Lily. She starts begging for her life because AJ is that guy. Just so fucking funny to me. Yeah, overall, I think it's really good. I just really didn't like the guy who was fucking walkers or whatever his deal was. Like, he tells you to go in and play a wind chime, trying to make you like the walkers. I think that was a stupid plot point. You're expecting me to like the people who killed Lee? Really? Like, really? You expect me to like these inanimate objects? Like, you might as well put googly eyes on a rock and say, hey, you see this guy? Look at the rock. Look at how peaceful he is. Don't you want to be his friend? It was just stupid. Again, it's also stupid because in episode 4, Take Us Back, which we'll get to, if you end up shooting Lily, ends up getting mad because you shot your biggest enemy, who obviously did end up betraying you if you decided to spare her and kill the guy who loves walkers, but, you know, they didn't know that, so I can understand. It was just stupid. Like, it's war. Like, what are you talking about, you little shit? Aside from that, I really don't have too much to say about episode 3. I think it was really good. I don't think it was as good as any of the episodes in season 1, even around every corner, but it was still a really fun, enjoyable ride, especially preparing to go to war with the, I guess I'll call them Lily's boat crew or whatever, the Barbary pirates of Lily's Somaliland. The final episode 4, that's an S tier. That's an S tier. That's the one thing they did good after season 1. They really just brought back No Time Left for season 4, and it worked flawlessly. The only thing I really don't like is just the fact that Clementine lived. I think it would have been 100 times better if she died. I know I might get, like, blasphemied for it. Overall, I think it's better than Long Road Ahead. But I think it would have just been a great ending to her character arc, just to have her die instead of have her as a stump. And then we also wouldn't have gotten the books, so thank God for that. I have read the books, so I'll make a video on it next time I don't have a video out in time. But overall, I think Take Us Back was really nice. You come home, you eventually end up settling in the school with all your friends and shit, so I think that's pretty cool. It was a good ending overall, and I like the similarities to No Time Left. And then I haven't played the Michonne games. I heard they're ass, but I just really have not played the Michonne games. I'll play them this time around, probably, after Season 2, I think. After Season 2, I'll play the Michonne games, I think. But this is my tier list. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. What would you agree with? What would you disagree with and admit you're being wrong about? And, again, Evil Walking Dead on Crack next week. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.